You're walking into work, same route you've taken for over 2 decades. Coffee in one hand, briefcase in the other. Just another Wednesday morning. But in less than 60 seconds, your entire world is about to flip upside down in the most brutal way imaginable. What happens next? Well, let's just say karma doesn't always wait for the right moment. Sometimes it shows up exactly when it needs to. So here's how it starts. A woman approaches the courthouse steps. Professional outfit, leather briefcase, the kind of put-together look that screams, "I belong here." But to the officer blocking her path, none of that matters. All he sees is someone he thinks doesn't belong. Someone he can push around. Someone powerless. The officer, let's call him Officer M, steps directly into her path. The sneer on his face says everything you need to know about what he's thinking. And then, without warning, without asking a single question, his hand connects with her face. Hard. The kind of slap that echoes. Her head snaps to the side. The expensive briefcase hits the ground. Papers scatter everywhere like snow across those stone steps. But he's not done. Not even close. His hand wraps around her throat, slams her back against the cold courthouse wall. And here's what he says, word for word. "Filthy animals like you belong in cages, not courthouses." Let that sink in for a second. This is happening on the steps of a building, literally dedicated to justice. The irony would be funny if it wasn't so horrifying. He yanks her arms behind her back. Metal cuffs bite into her wrists. And you know what makes this even worse? Other officers are gathering around. Not to stop him. Not to intervene. They're laughing. Recording it on their phones like it's entertainment. Like this woman's humiliation is content for their group chat later. 20 feet away from where this is happening, there's a bronze nameplate above the courthouse entrance. The Honorable Judge K. Williams presiding. 20 feet. That's all. The woman keeps her eyes locked on that nameplate, even as she's being brutalized. Even as everything is falling apart. That nameplate means something to her. Something important. Now here's where it gets interesting. Fast forward about an hour. Officer M is standing in a courtroom. Same courthouse. Different universe. He's straightened his uniform. Cleared his throat. Put on his best professional officer face. Because he's done this dance before. Many times. The routine is simple. Tell your version of events. Make yourself the hero. Control the narrative. And the system? The system almost always believes the cop over the criminal. Especially when that criminal looks a certain way. "Your Honor," he begins, and his voice is smooth, practiced, confident. "I was conducting routine security protocols when I encountered a suspicious individual attempting to breach courthouse security." He gestures toward the woman now sitting in handcuffs at the defendant's table. There's a purple bruise blooming across her left cheek. Fresh. Angry. The kind of bruise that tells a story. "The defendant was acting erratically," he continues. "Refusing to provide identification. Becoming increasingly agitated when asked to comply with standard security procedures." And the temporary judge sitting on the bench? He's nodding along. Approving. Buying every word. The judge, an older gentleman in his 60s, leans forward with interest. "And what exactly did you observe, officer?" Here's where Officer M really gets into character. "Well, sir, she was dressed inappropriately for court proceedings. Carrying what appeared to be stolen legal documents." His eyes actually gleam as he warms up to his own lies. "When I approached to investigate, she became verbally aggressive. Using profanity. Making threats." In the gallery, 2 other officers exchange knowing looks. They've heard Officer M tell this exact story dozens of times before. Different faces, same script. It's like a template. Fill in the blanks with whatever details fit the situation. "She kept screaming about being someone important," Officer M says, and there's actual disdain dripping from his voice now. These people always claim to be lawyers, judges, senators, anything to avoid accountability. "I've seen this playbook before, Your Honor." The judge is eating it up. "Did she attempt to flee or resist arrest?" "Absolutely. The defendant became physically combative when I attempted to place her in protective custody. I was forced to use the minimum necessary force to ensure public safety." As he says this, his hand trembles. Just slightly. the only crack in his otherwise polished performance. Another officer is called to corroborate the story. Officer R stands up, uniform pressed to perfection. Yes, ma'am. I witnessed the entire incident. The defendant was clearly attempting to circumvent security protocols. Officer M handled the situation with remarkable professionalism. Remarkable professionalism. Those words hang in the air like a bad joke. The judge asks about the alleged assault. Officer M's jaw tightens just a bit. Your Honor, I used only the force necessary to subdue an aggressive individual who was threatening courthouse security. The defendant's injuries, if any, resulted from her own resistance to lawful commands. And then he pulls out his phone. Shows a video that conveniently starts mid-confrontation. I have partial footage here, though unfortunately my body cam malfunctioned this morning. The lie rolls off his tongue like he's said it 1,000 times before. From the defendant's table, barely audible, the woman murmurs, "How convenient." The judge raises an eyebrow. "I'm sorry." "Nothing, Your Honor," she replies calmly. But her eyes? Her eyes are blazing with something that looks like controlled fury, like she's taking notes. Mental receipts for later. Officer M keeps going. He's on a roll now. What we're seeing here is a classic case of someone playing the victim card after being caught breaking the law. She was trespassing on government property, carrying suspicious documents, and when confronted with her criminal behavior, she immediately claimed discrimination. The prosecutor, a middle-aged woman, nods sympathetically. Officer M, in your 15 years of service, have you encountered similar situations? Unfortunately, yes. And now Officer M's voice rises with righteous indignation. There's a pattern here. Certain individuals believe they're above the law. That rules don't apply to them. They use accusations of discrimination to deflect from their own criminal behavior. He pauses for effect. It's honestly insulting to the real victims of discrimination. Several people in the gallery nod in agreement. This narrative feels familiar to them. Comfortable. They've seen it on the news. Heard it on talk radio. Read it on social media. It must be true, right? The defendant claims she was going to work. Officer M actually makes air quotes when he says this, but she couldn't provide any employment verification, any identification, or any legitimate reason for being in a restricted area of the courthouse. A third officer steps forward. If I may add, Your Honor, the defendant was carrying what appeared to be confidential legal documents. We suspect she may have been involved in some kind of identity theft or fraud scheme. Now the judge looks really intrigued. Fraud scheme? Yes, sir. Officer M jumps back in, sensing momentum building. These documents had judicial letterhead, case numbers, sensitive information. No legitimate citizen would have access to materials like this. We believe she may have been planning to impersonate court personnel. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a knife. But Officer M? He's completely oblivious to the trap he's setting for himself. In my professional opinion, he concludes, this is simply another case of someone trying to game the system. She knows if she can make this about race, about alleged police brutality, she can distract from her actual crimes. It's a calculated manipulation of public sympathy. He turns to face the woman directly. His eyes are cold, contemptuous. These people think they can just waltz into any building, any courtroom, any space they choose. And when they're stopped, they scream discrimination. Well, not in my courthouse. The words hang in the air like poison. Some court staff shift uncomfortably. Others remain stone-faced, nodding along. The prosecutor adds, Your Honor, the state recommends we proceed with charges of trespassing, resisting arrest, and assault on a police officer. The defendant's attempt to frame this as a civil rights issue is clearly a desperate defense strategy. Officer M allows himself a small smile. This is going exactly as planned. Another case, another win, another reminder that the system works the way it's supposed to. People know their place, or they learn it the hard way. Furthermore, he continues, emboldened now, I want to emphasize that I showed remarkable restraint. The defendant was clearly unstable, possibly under the influence of narcotics. A lesser officer might have used much more significant force. The judge nods gravely. Your professionalism is noted, Officer M. In the defendant's chair, the woman sits perfectly still, hands folded in her lap despite the handcuffs. Her expression remains calm, almost serene. But if you look closely, really closely, you'd notice the slight upturn at the corners of her mouth. Like she knows something nobody else in the room knows. Like she's playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. She's taking mental notes of every lie, every fabrication, every detail that's about to unravel this officer's entire career and reputation. The officer has absolutely no idea he's testifying in front of the very person who has the power to destroy him. "Is there anything else you'd like to add, officer?" the judge asks. Officer M straightens his shoulders. Just that incidents like this remind us why we need strong law enforcement. Some people only understand authority when it's backed by force. The defendant learned today that actions have consequences. He has no idea how prophetic those words are about to become. The prosecutor smiles confidently. "The state rests its case against this defendant, Your Honor. The evidence clearly shows a pattern of criminal behavior and resistance to lawful authority." As Officer M steps down from the witness stand, he catches the woman's eye one final time. And you know what he does? He winks at her. A gesture of complete dominance. Total victory. It would be the last moment of triumph in his entire career. But he doesn't know that yet. "The defendant may now present her statement," the judge announces. His tone suggests this will be a mere formality before sentencing. Just going through the motions. The woman rises slowly from her chair. The handcuffs clink softly as she moves. Despite the purple bruise on her cheek, despite the disheveled state of her clothes after being slammed against a wall, she carries herself with something that makes several people in the courtroom shift uncomfortably. Dignity. Unmistakable dignity. "Thank you, Your Honor." Her voice is clear, controlled, and it carries an authority that seems to fill the entire room. The judge blinks. Something in her tone is unexpected. Professional in a way that doesn't match the narrative he's been presented with. First, she begins. "I want to clarify several factual inaccuracies in Officer M's testimony." Her eyes sweep the courtroom methodically, landing on each person who supported the officer's lies. According to his statement, "I was trespassing on government property. However, I was walking on a public sidewalk approaching the main entrance of this courthouse at approximately 8:47 this morning." She turns slightly, addressing the judge directly. "Your Honor, I'm sure you're familiar with the Supreme Court ruling that clearly establishes that public sidewalks adjacent to government buildings are traditional public forums where citizens have a constitutional right to be present." The stenographer's fingers pause mid-stroke. The prosecutor frowns. This isn't the rambling emotional outburst they expected from someone facing serious charges. Furthermore, the woman continues, "Officer M testified that I was carrying suspicious documents and suggested I was involved in identity theft. I'd like to examine that claim more closely." She gestures toward the evidence table where her scattered papers have been collected. Those documents are indeed authentic legal materials. Specifically, they include pending case files, judicial memoranda, and administrative correspondence, all of which I have legitimate access to in my professional capacity. "Professional capacity?" the judge interrupts. "And what exactly is your profession, miss?" The woman pauses. A slight smile plays at the corners of her mouth. "Williams. Dr. Williams. And I think we'll get to my professional background shortly, Your Honor." Officer M feels a chill run down his spine. Something is very wrong with this picture. "Your Honor, if I may continue," she says, her voice taking on the cadence of someone completely comfortable in a courtroom setting. "Officer M also testified that I became verbally aggressive and used profanity. I'd like to address that claim by invoking my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent regarding any statements I may have made during the alleged incident." She pauses, letting that sink in. "However, I will note that any statements I did make were in direct response to being physically assaulted without provocation, warning, or legal justification." A young law clerk in the back row sits up straighter. Something about this woman's voice, her mannerisms, seems familiar. Now, regarding the officer's claim that his body cam malfunctioned, and here Steele enters her voice. "Your Honor, I'm sure you're aware that comprehensive video and audio evidence of this morning's incident exists and will be made available to this court." The judge leans forward. "What kind of evidence are you referring to?" "Your Honor, this courthouse has extensive security camera coverage, including high-definition cameras positioned at 15-foot intervals along the main approach. Additionally, the county maintains automatic backup systems for all officer body cam footage, regardless of claimed equipment malfunctions. The color drains from Officer M's face. He'd forgotten about the courthouse security cameras in his rush to control the narrative. "I would like to formally request," the woman continues, "that this court issue a preservation order for all electronic surveillance data from this morning between 8:45 and 9:15, including but not limited to courthouse security footage, body cam backup files, and any mobile phone recordings that may have been made by officers present at the scene." The prosecutor stands abruptly. "Objection, Your Honor. The defendant cannot simply make evidentiary demands without proper legal representation." The woman turns to face the prosecutor with a look that makes her take an involuntary step backward. "Your Honor, defendants have the constitutional right to present evidence in their own defense under the Sixth Amendment. Additionally, established precedent requires the prosecution to preserve potentially exculpatory evidence." The silence in the courtroom is deafening. This is not how these cases usually go. The judge clears his throat. "Miss Williams, you seem unusually familiar with legal procedure. Do you have formal legal training?" "I have some experience with the judicial system, Your Honor." The response is carefully neutral, but her eyes gleam with something that looks almost like amusement. She walks as much as the handcuffs allow to the evidence table and gestures toward her scattered belongings. "Your Honor, I'd also like to address Officer M's characterization of my presence here as suspicious or unauthorized." She points to a specific document among the papers. "This is my daily court calendar, which shows I was scheduled to appear in this building for legitimate business starting at 9 o'clock this morning." The bailiff, a large man who's worked in this courthouse for 12 years, suddenly goes very still. He's staring at the woman with growing recognition and horror. "Officer M testified that I claim to be someone important," she continues. "I'd like to clarify that I never made any such claim during our encounter. However, I did attempt to show him my identification, which he refused to examine before initiating his assault." She pauses, surveying the courtroom. "Your Honor, I have in my possession, despite Officer M's violent interference, documentation that will conclusively establish both my identity and my legitimate reason for being at this courthouse this morning." The judge is beginning to look distinctly uncomfortable. "What kind of documentation?" She reaches carefully into her jacket pocket, moving slowly to avoid startling anyone. "My judicial parking pass, issued by this courthouse's administrative office. My building access card programmed with my judicial chamber's entry code. And my official identification." The bailiff suddenly stands up, his face pale as he recognizes the woman he's seen every day for the past 3 years. "Your Honor," she says quietly, "I believe there's been a significant misunderstanding about who exactly Officer M assaulted this morning." She holds up a leather credential wallet. Even from across the room, the gold judicial seal is clearly visible. "Perhaps we should recess so that proper identifications can be verified," she suggests, her voice carrying the unmistakable tone of someone who's used to giving orders in courtrooms, not taking them. The judge stares at the credential wallet, then at her face, then at the bailiff, who's nodding grimly. "Court will recess for 15 minutes, he says hoarsely. As the gavel falls, Officer M feels his world beginning to crumble around him. Whatever game he thought he was playing, he's beginning to realize he might not understand the rules at all. During that 15-minute recess, the courthouse buzzes with nervous energy like a beehive that's been kicked. In a small holding room adjacent to the courtroom, the woman sits calmly while the bailiff fumbles with his keys. His hands are shaking as the reality of the situation hits him. "Judge Williams," he whispers, his voice thick with horror. "Jesus Christ. Judge Williams. I am so sorry. I didn't recognize you in civilian clothes, and when they brought you in like that." "It's all right, Henderson," she replies softly. "You weren't part of this. But I need you to do something for me. Anything, Your Honor. Anything at all. I need you to go to my chambers quietly and bring me my judicial robes. The black ones with the gold trim." She looks him directly in the eye. "And Henderson? Bring my gavel too. The engraved one from my swearing-in ceremony." Henderson nods vigorously and hurries out, leaving Judge Williams alone with her thoughts. She closes her eyes and takes a deep breath, centering herself the way she's learned to do during her 23 years on the bench. This morning she was Judge Kesha Williams, respected jurist, protector of constitutional rights, guardian of justice. In the span of 15 minutes, she'd been transformed into a victim, a defendant, a woman in handcuffs facing trumped-up charges. But now it's time to reclaim what's hers. Her phone, confiscated during the arrest but now returned, buzzes with missed calls and messages. Her clerk has sent increasingly frantic texts. "Judge Williams, where are you? The hearing is in 30 minutes. Your Honor, the attorneys are here asking about delays. Judge Williams, please call me back. There are rumors that something happened." Judge Williams types back quickly. "Tell the attorneys we'll reschedule. Something more important has come up. Clear my afternoon calendar." She scrolls through her contacts until she finds the number she's looking for. Chief Judge Margaret Carter, the administrative head of the entire judicial district. "Margaret, it's Kesha." "Kesha, thank God. We heard there was some kind of incident. Are you all right?" "I've been better. Margaret, I need you to do something for me, and I need you to do it without asking questions right now." "Of course. Whatever you need. I need you to contact the Courthouse security office and tell them to immediately preserve and copy all surveillance footage from this morning between 8:45 and 9:15. All cameras, all angles. And Margaret? Make sure there are multiple copies stored in different locations." There's a pause. "Kesha, what exactly happened this morning?" A police officer just spent an hour testifying under oath about how he heroically subdued a dangerous criminal who was trespassing on courthouse property. Judge Williams' voice is steady, but there's an edge to it that Chief Judge Carter has never heard before. "The dangerous criminal was me, Margaret. On my way to work. He didn't just arrest me. He assaulted me in front of this courthouse, called me a filthy animal, and told me I belonged in a cage." The silence on the other end of the line stretches for nearly 30 seconds. "Jesus Christ, Kesha. What do you need? Should I call the FBI, the Attorney General's office?" "Not yet. Right now I need those surveillance recordings secured, and I need you to make some phone calls. I want every case Officer M has testified in over the past 5 years pulled and reviewed. Every single one. Consider it done. But Kesha, you can't handle this case yourself. There's a conflict of interest. Margaret, in about 10 minutes, I'm going to walk back into that courtroom wearing my judicial robes. Officer M is going to learn exactly who he assaulted this morning, and more importantly, who has the power to ensure he faces the consequences of his actions." Henderson returns carrying a garment bag and a small wooden box. "Your robes, Your Honor. And your gavel." Judge Williams stands and unzips the garment bag, revealing the flowing black judicial robes that have been her armor for over 2 decades. As she slips them on, she feels the transformation begin. The fabric settles on her shoulders like a mantle of authority, each fold a reminder of the power she wields, the oaths she's taken, the justice she's sworn to protect. She opens the wooden box and lifts out her ceremonial gavel. Its weight is familiar and comforting in her hand. Engraved on its handle are the words, "Justice is blind, but she sees all." "Henderson," she says, adjusting her robes, "when we return to that courtroom, I want you to announce me properly." "Yes, Your Honor. How would you like to be announced?" Judge Kesha Williams straightens to her full height, every inch the federal judge she's been for the past 23 years. The Honorable Judge Kesha Williams presiding. She looks at herself in the small mirror on the wall. The bruise on her cheek is still visible, but now it serves a different purpose. It isn't just evidence of Officer M's brutality. It's a symbol of how far the system has fallen and how completely it's about to be restored. "When court resumes," she says quietly, "Officer M will learn what justice really means." "All rise." Henderson's voice booms through the courtroom with an authority that makes everyone snap to attention. But what happens next will be seared into their memories forever. Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Kesha Williams presiding. The words hit the courtroom like a thunderbolt. Officer M, who'd been leaning casually against the prosecutor's table, goes rigid. The temporary judge, still seated in what he now realizes is not his chair, turns pale as death. The prosecutor's mouth falls open. Judge Kesha Williams enters through the judge's chamber door, wearing her full judicial robes. The gold trim catches the overhead lights. She moves with the measured pace of someone who's walked this path thousands of times before. In her right hand, she carries her ceremonial gavel. The silence is absolute. Not a single person dares to breathe. She takes her place behind the bench. Her bench. And sits down slowly, deliberately. Her eyes sweep the courtroom, taking in every shocked face, every dropped jaw, every person who's finally beginning to understand the magnitude of what has just happened. Officer M, she says quietly, her voice carrying the full weight of judicial authority, you may remain standing. Officer M looks like he's about to vomit. His face has gone from red to white to green in the span of 30 seconds. Your Honor, the temporary judge stammers, rising from his chair. We didn't. I mean to say. Judge Harrison. Judge Williams interrupts, her tone crisp but not unkind. Thank you for managing my courtroom during my unexpected delay. You may return to your own docket. I'll handle this matter from here. Harrison practically runs from the courtroom, his robes billowing behind him like he's being chased by demons. Judge Williams turns her attention back to Officer M, who's now visibly shaking. Officer M, approximately 2 hours ago, you testified under oath in this courtroom. Do you recall your testimony? Officer M can't form words. Let me refresh your memory. You stated, and I quote, these people always claim to be lawyers, judges, senators, anything to avoid accountability. Do you remember saying that? Officer M nods weakly. You also stated that I was, and I quote, another entitled activist looking for a payday, and that you had seen, quote, this playbook before. Is that accurate? The courtroom is so quiet that the hum of the air conditioning sounds like a roar. And perhaps most memorably, Judge Williams' voice grows colder. You stated that people like me need to learn that, quote, actions have consequences. Do you recall that particular piece of wisdom? Officer M's legs are shaking so hard he can barely stand. Judge Williams reaches under her bench and pulls out a tablet computer. Officer M, I'd like to show you some evidence that has just come to my attention. She turns the tablet screen toward the courtroom. On it is crystal-clear security camera footage from the courthouse steps, showing the entire morning's incident from multiple angles. This is footage from Courthouse Security Camera number 7, which has an unobstructed view of the main entrance. Her finger touches the screen, starting the video. The courtroom watches in horror as the events unfold on screen. There's Judge Williams walking calmly toward the courthouse in her civilian clothes. There's Officer M blocking her path. Another ghetto rat trying to sneak in. Officer M's voice, clear as day, fills the courtroom through the tablet speakers. Several people gasp audibly. The video continues, showing the unprovoked assault in vivid detail. The slap that snaps her head sideways. The brutal grab to her throat. The handcuffs. But the most damning moment is yet to come. Filthy animals like you belong in cages, not courthouses. Officer M's own words, spoken with such venom and hatred, echo through the courtroom. Several people in the gallery stand up and walk out in disgust. Officer M, Judge Williams says, pausing the video, do you see any verbal aggression from the defendant in this footage? Any profanity? Any threats? Officer M remains silent, his career disintegrating before his eyes. Now, Judge Williams continues, let's examine your claim that your body cam malfunctioned. She swipes to a new video file. This is backup footage from your own body cam, automatically uploaded to the county's cloud storage system every 60 seconds. A system you apparently forgot existed. The new video begins playing, and Officer M's voice fills the courtroom again. But this time it's even worse. This is the complete, unedited version. Look at this one, thinking she can just walk into my courthouse. These people need to learn their place. Time to teach another lesson. The prosecutor is frantically gathering her papers, trying to distance herself from the catastrophe unfolding before her. But Judge Williams isn't finished. Officer Rodriguez. Officer Thompson, she calls out. You both testified under oath that Officer M handled the situation with remarkable professionalism. Would you like to revise those statements? Both officers are already edging toward the exit. And here, Judge Williams says, advancing the video to show the assault from Officer M's own body cam perspective, we can see the moment when Officer M committed felony assault against a federal judge. She lets those words hang in the air for a moment. Federal Judge. Officer M's knees buckle. He grabs onto the prosecutor's table to keep from falling. But wait, Judge Williams says, her voice taking on an almost conversational tone. There's more. She pulls up a new file on her tablet. This is audio from Officer Thompson's body cam, which was apparently functioning perfectly this morning. A new voice fills the courtroom. Officer Thompson's voice, speaking to Officer Rodriguez while Officer M was assaulting Judge Williams. Dude's really going off on this one. Think she's actually somebody important like she keeps saying. Officer Rodriguez's voice responds, Nah, man. Look at her. Martinez knows what he's doing. Probably just another welfare queen trying to scam the system. More laughter from the officers as they watch their colleague brutalize a federal judge. The few remaining spectators in the gallery are staring at Officer M with undisguised revulsion. Officer M, Judge Williams says, setting down her tablet, you asked me earlier if I had any employment verification. Well, I do. She gestures to the judicial seal mounted on the wall behind her bench, then to her nameplate, then to the oil painting of her that hangs in the courthouse lobby. I've been the presiding judge of this courthouse for 23 years, Officer M. Every case you've ever testified in, every warrant you've ever requested, every search you've ever conducted in this jurisdiction has been under my authority. Officer M finally finds his voice, though it comes out as barely a whisper. Your Honor, I didn't know. You didn't know? Judge Williams repeats slowly. You didn't know because you didn't bother to look. You saw a black woman and you made assumptions. You saw someone you thought was powerless and you decided to abuse that power. She leans forward slightly. But, Officer M, there's something else you didn't know. The courtroom holds its breath. For the past 6 months, I've been conducting an investigation into patterns of misconduct and racial bias in this police department, working directly with the FBI's Civil Rights Division. Officer M's face goes completely white. This morning's incident wasn't random, Officer M. You've been under investigation. And you just provided us with the most perfect evidence we could have hoped for. She lifts her gavel and holds it in front of her. Officer M, you said actions have consequences. You were right about that. Court will recess while I consider the appropriate charges. The gavel comes down with a sound like thunder. Officer M collapses into a chair, his career, his reputation, and quite possibly his freedom now hanging by a thread. When court resumes 20 minutes later, the atmosphere has completely transformed. Word has spread throughout the courthouse like wildfire. Lawyers, clerks, bailiffs, and court reporters have quietly filed into the gallery, drawn by whispers of the most spectacular courtroom reversal in the building's history. Officer M sits slumped in what is now clearly the defendant's chair, his uniform wrinkled, his face ashen. His attorney, a nervous public defender who'd been hastily summoned, keeps shooting worried glances at his client. Judge Kesha Williams returns to her bench with the same measured dignity she's displayed thousands of times before. But now every eye in the room sees her differently. This isn't just any judge. This is the woman who was brutally assaulted by the man now trembling before her bench. Officer M, she begins, her voice carrying the full weight of 23 years of judicial authority. Before we proceed with the serious criminal charges you now face, I believe this court and everyone present deserves to understand exactly who you assaulted this morning. She stands, moving around the bench to address the packed courtroom directly. My name is Judge Kesha Williams. I have served as the presiding judge of this courthouse for 23 years. I was appointed to this position in 2001, and I was confirmed by the state senate with a unanimous vote. Her voice grows stronger with each word. I graduated with highest honors from Harvard Law School, where I was editor of the Harvard Law Review. Before my appointment to the bench, I served for 8 years as a federal prosecutor in the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice. Officer M's attorney is frantically scribbling notes, probably calculating how many years his client is facing. During my tenure as a federal prosecutor, I specialized in cases involving police misconduct, civil rights violations, and institutional racism. I successfully prosecuted 47 cases against law enforcement officers who abused their authority. She pauses, letting that number sink in. In my 23 years on this bench, I have presided over more than 15,000 cases. I have sentenced hundreds of defendants, from petty thieves to murderers. I have seen every type of criminal behavior, every excuse, every justification. Judge Williams walks closer to where Officer M sits cowering. But in all my years of service, Officer M, I have never, not once, encountered such a perfect example of everything that is wrong with policing in America. The packed courtroom is silent, except for the sound of Officer M's labored breathing. You see, Officer M, when you called me a ghetto rat and a filthy animal, when you told me I belonged in a cage, when you slammed me against the wall of my own courthouse, you weren't just assaulting a random citizen. She returns to her position behind the bench. You were assaulting the person who has dedicated her entire career to ensuring that officers like you are held accountable for their actions. Judge Williams opens a thick file that's been placed on her bench. This file contains detailed records of every case you've testified in over the past 5 years. 43 cases, Officer M, 43 times you've stood in my courtroom and sworn to tell the truth. She flips through several pages. 28 of those cases involved defendants who were people of color. In 26 of those cases, you were the arresting officer. And in every single one, Officer M, you described the defendants using remarkably similar language to what you used with me this morning. Officer M's face has gone from white to gray. Acting erratically. Refusing to comply. Becoming aggressive. Threatening officer safety. The same words, the same narrative, the same lies over and over again. Judge Williams closes the file with a sharp snap. But here's what you didn't know, Officer M. For the past 6 months, I've been working with the FBI's Civil Rights Division, the State Attorney General's Office, and the Department of Justice to investigate systemic patterns of racial bias and misconduct in this police department. The public defender stops writing and simply stares at his client with something approaching pity. Your name, Officer M, appears on a federal watch list. You have been under surveillance. Your communications have been monitored. Your arrest patterns have been analyzed. She leans forward slightly. And this morning, Officer M, you provided us with the most perfect, unambiguous, undeniable evidence of criminal civil rights violations that any prosecutor could hope for. Judge Williams lifts her gavel. You assaulted a federal judge while she was performing her official duties. You did so based explicitly on racial hatred, as evidenced by your own recorded statements. You then committed perjury when you lied under oath about the circumstances of that assault. The gavel hovers in the air. Officer M, you asked me this morning if I knew my place. Well, let me tell you exactly what my place is. Her voice fills the courtroom with quiet authority. My place is on this bench in this courtroom, ensuring that justice is served. My place is holding people like you accountable when you abuse the power we've entrusted to you. The gavel comes down once. My place, Officer M, is making sure that what you did to me this morning is the last act of racial violence you will ever commit as a police officer. Officer M finally understands. He hadn't just assaulted a random woman. He had assaulted justice itself. And justice was about to hit back. Officer M, Judge Williams begins, opening a thick file. Let's examine your distinguished career in law enforcement, shall we? Officer M's attorney leans over to whisper urgently in his client's ear, but Officer M seems paralyzed, unable to respond to anything happening around him. According to records from Internal Affairs, you've been the subject of 47 formal complaints during your 15-year career. 47 complaints, Officer M. That averages to more than 3 complaints per year. She pulls out a document and holds it up. Let's start with complaint number 1, filed back in 2009. A 63-year-old grandmother alleged that you used racial slurs during a routine traffic stop and slammed her face into her car hood when she asked for your badge number. The packed courtroom stirs uneasily. Your department's investigation concluded that her allegations were unsubstantiated. Interesting, considering we now have video evidence of you using remarkably similar language and tactics. Judge Williams flips to another page. Complaint number 12, 2012. A 17-year-old honor student alleged that you planted substances in his backpack after he refused to provide information about his older brother. Once again, your department found the complaint unsubstantiated. Officer M's breathing is becoming more labored with each revelation. Complaint number 23, 2016. A prominent doctor alleged that you arrested him outside his own home because you didn't believe a black man could live in that neighborhood. He spent 6 hours in jail before his attorney could secure his release. She looks directly at Officer M. What was the department's finding on that complaint, Officer M? I don't. Officer M's voice is barely audible. Unsubstantiated. Judge Williams answers for him. Are you beginning to see a pattern here? Chief Judge Margaret Carter has quietly entered the courtroom and is now sitting in the front row, her expression grim as she takes notes. But here's what's really interesting, Officer M. I've cross-referenced your complaint record with your arrest statistics, and some fascinating patterns emerge. Judge Williams pulls out a large chart and displays it so the courtroom can see. Over the past 5 years, you've made 137 arrests. Of those 137 arrests, 119 involved people of color. That's 87%, Officer M. In a district where the population is only 40% people of color. She lets that statistic hang in the air. Now, you might argue that's just coincidence. That you're simply policing high-crime areas. But here's the interesting part. When we look at conviction rates, something remarkable happens. Another document appears. Of those 119 arrests of people of color, only 31 resulted in convictions. That's a conviction rate of 26%. But of your 18 arrests of white individuals, 16 resulted in convictions. An 89% conviction rate. The implications are devastating. Do you know what that suggests, Officer M? It suggests that you're either remarkably incompetent at building cases against people of color, or you're arresting them without probable cause at a significantly higher rate than you arrest white individuals. Officer M is now openly trembling. And then there's this. Judge Williams holds up another file. This is a compilation of body cam footage from your arrests over the past 3 years. Footage that was automatically backed up to county servers, footage you apparently forgot existed. She plays a montage of clips. In each one, Officer M's behavior follows a disturbing pattern. Aggressive confrontations with people of color. Escalating situations that didn't need to be escalated. Using force that wasn't necessary. And always, the same dehumanizing language. These people need to learn their place. Another one thinking they can talk back to me. Time to remind them who's in charge. The courtroom watches in stunned silence as the pattern becomes undeniable. Officer M, Judge Williams says, stopping the video, this morning you didn't just assault a federal judge. You revealed a pattern of behavior that has corrupted dozens, possibly hundreds of cases over the course of your career. She stands again, addressing the entire courtroom. Every case this officer has touched is now suspect. Every testimony he's given is now questionable. Every arrest he's made must be reviewed. Because what we've seen here today isn't an isolated incident. It's a system failure. Judge Williams turns back to Officer M. I'm hereby ordering a comprehensive review of every case you've been involved in for the past 10 years. The District Attorney's Office will be notified. The FBI's Civil Rights Division will be notified. The Department of Justice will be notified. Her voice rises slightly. And every single person you've arrested, every single person you've testified against, every single person whose life you've damaged with your racism and your violence, they will all be notified of what we've learned here today. The gavel comes down again. Furthermore, I'm issuing a formal referral to the State Bar for investigation into every prosecutor who has knowingly relied on your testimony despite the pattern of complaints against you. The prosecutor who'd been so confident earlier has gone pale. Because this isn't just about you, Officer M. This is about a system that allowed you to operate with impunity for 15 years. A system that ignored 47 complaints. A system that looked the other way while you terrorized communities and violated constitutional rights. Judge Williams sits back down. Now, as for the charges you face personally, based on the evidence presented, I am ordering you held without bail on charges of aggravated assault against a federal official, deprivation of rights under color of law, perjury, and conspiracy to obstruct justice. Each charge lands like a hammer blow. Officer Rodriguez and Officer Thompson, you are also hereby charged as accessories after the fact and with perjury for your false testimony today. Bailiffs, please take them into custody. The 3 officers are led away in handcuffs, the same handcuffs they'd used on so many others. The irony is not lost on anyone in the courtroom. Before we conclude, Judge Williams says, I want to say something to everyone present and to everyone who will hear about what happened here today. She looks around the crowded courtroom. What happened to me this morning could have happened to anyone. In fact, it has happened to countless people who didn't have the privilege of judicial authority to defend themselves. People who were brutalized, arrested, charged, and convicted based on lies just like the ones Officer M told today. Her voice becomes softer but no less powerful. The only difference between me and those people is that I had the power to fight back. I had credentials that couldn't be ignored. I had colleagues who could secure evidence. I had the knowledge and resources to defend myself. She pauses. But what about all the others? What about the people who don't have law degrees? Who don't have positions of authority? Who don't have the system on their side? What happens to them when they're brutalized by officers who see them as less than human? The silence in the courtroom is profound. That's the real tragedy here. Not what happened to me, but what's been happening to countless others for years, decades, generations. And they had no voice, no power, no platform to demand justice. Judge Williams stands one final time. So I'm using my voice, my power, my platform to say this clearly and unequivocally. This ends now. Not just for me, but for everyone. The system that allowed Officer M to operate for 15 years, that ignored complaints, that protected abusive officers over vulnerable citizens, that system is going to change. The gavel comes down with finality. Court is adjourned. Officer M, you will remain in custody pending trial. And I want to make something very clear. I will personally ensure that every case you've touched is reviewed with the scrutiny it should have received from the beginning. As the courtroom empties, people are silent. Some are in shock. Some are angry. Some are crying. But everyone understands they've witnessed something historic. Judge Williams sits alone at her bench for a moment after everyone has left. She touches the bruise on her cheek gently. It still throbs. But it's no longer just a symbol of violence. It's a reminder of how quickly everything can change. How fragile justice is. How important it is to fight for it. Henderson approaches quietly. Your Honor, are you all right? She looks up at him and smiles. A real smile for the first time all day. You know what, Henderson? I think I will be. Because today, justice wasn't just blind. She saw everything. And she didn't look away. In the weeks that followed, the aftermath of that day would ripple through the entire justice system. The FBI investigation would uncover systematic corruption far beyond Officer M. Dozens of cases would be overturned. Wrongfully convicted individuals would be freed. Policies would be changed. Training would be reformed. But perhaps most importantly, people would remember. They would remember the day a federal judge was brutalized on courthouse steps and used that moment not for personal vendetta, but to shine a light on systemic injustice. They would remember that justice delayed is justice denied, but justice delayed and then delivered with precision can change everything. Officer M would eventually be convicted on all charges and sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. His fellow officers would receive shorter sentences after cooperating with the broader investigation. The police department would undergo a complete overhaul of its policies and procedures. And Judge Kesha Williams? She continued serving on the bench for another decade, becoming known not just for her fairness and wisdom, but for her unwavering commitment to ensuring that the justice system actually delivered justice for everyone, regardless of who they were or what they looked like. Because on that morning, when Officer M saw a woman he thought was powerless and decided to abuse his authority, he made a critical mistake. He forgot that justice isn't about power. It's about principle. And principles, when defended by people with courage, can change the world. So remember this story. Remember what happened when someone tried to deny justice to the very person whose job it was to protect it. Remember that actions do have consequences, just not always the ones we expect. And if you've made it this far, if this story moved you or made you think or made you angry or gave you hope, do me a favor. Share it. Talk about it. Let it remind you that the fight for justice isn't over. It's never over. It requires constant vigilance, constant courage, constant commitment. Because somewhere out there, right now, someone is being treated the way Judge Williams was treated that morning. And they don't have the power to fight back the way she did. So we have to fight for them. We have to demand better. We have to hold the system accountable. That's what justice really means. Not revenge. Not punishment for its own sake. But accountability. Change. Making sure that what happened never happens again. Thanks for listening to this story. Thanks for caring enough to hear it all the way through. And if you believe in real justice, in accountability, in making the system work for everyone, then you know what to do. Stand up. Speak out. Don't look away. Because justice is blind, but she sees all. And she needs us to be her eyes, her voice, her hands in making the world more fair. That's the lesson Officer M learned the hard way. Let's make sure we learn it too, before someone has to teach it to us.